It always seems bad at first, but then I find a way. Leave here now and live, or stay and face your destiny.
Our destiny is your death!
Very well. Aku destroyed everything. Gotta get back to the past.
Oh, it's too good! We gotta start the show!
Welcome to Cordkillers, our mission to report the intel from the front lines of the cord-cutting revolution so you, my friends, have the information you need to be able to watch what you want, when you want, where you want, on whatever device you want. And Brian Brushwood is here to help me, Tom Merritt, not feel so old.
Nope,
by playing
I'm
Samurai
here for
Jack.
one thing, and that's to get hype for the return of Samurai Jack on Adult Swim. Are you kidding me? This is going to be freaking amazing. If you haven't seen it, check out the Season 5 trailer. You see like an old man, recently freed prisoner version of Jack shooting with a gun, dragging me back in. I don't have any words. I'm out of control.
So you kids like the Samurai Jack then?
I mean, they're not kids anymore, Tom. They're all in college.
I'm
If
just
they were
saying this
5
because
years old,
why don't I know anything about Samurai Jack? Because I'm declining into my twilight years. That's why.
Wait, do you really not know anything about
No,
Samurai
I
Jack?
seriously did. I heard about it for the first time last week.
Okay, so Samurai Jack was brilliant back at the turn of the century because they figured out that you could do totally badass samurai movie stuff, and as long as they were robots you were killing, you could have oil gushing out of them and these brutal murders by a samurai, but they were robots, so it was all totally fine. So at the beginning of the 2000s, Samurai Jack was as stylistic. As a matter of fact, we even talked about the creator of Samurai Jack, Gennady Tartakovsky, I think his name is, who also did the original animated Clone Wars. He was briefly rumored to be putting together a Dark Tower animated feature series for HBO, but instead it looks like they're going back and revisiting their roots, which very telling. This is not a Cartoon Network program. This is an Adult Swim program, which I think will reflect the fact that if you were 5 years old and loved Samurai Jack, you're now in college, and I bet you're going to love Samurai Jack.
It's also too old to have nostalgia for old things.
It's also through Toonami that they have brought Toonami back, their anime block.
Oh, that's right.
And so I think this is tied into that. Not
Awesome.
necessarily
Everything
Adult
old
Swim.
is new again.
Yeah.
All right. Well, in that spirit, let's get into the primary target then. Forrester Research is one of those companies that goes out and does pretty good surveys to find out what people are thinking about things. And they surveyed cord cutters as well as likely cord cutters. So they did a little jimmying of like, hey, are you pretty sure you're going to cut the cord? And said, all right, which of these services is too expensive? Here's what they found out. They also found out some interesting stuff about people's perception of original content, but we'll get to that in a second. 5% of everyone surveyed thought Netflix is too expensive. Another way of saying that is 95% of the people think Netflix is priced just right. 11% thought Hulu was too expensive, which, by the way, Hulu is $2 a month cheaper than Netflix, unless you want to pay for a commercial-free version. 18% thought HBO is too expensive, which we've always talked about. Oh, at $15 a month, a lot of people think it's too expensive. Well, apparently only 18% do. And even more than them, 23% thought CBS All Access is too expensive. It's only $5.99 a month. And Brian, 24% think CISO is too expensive. It's only a few dollars a month.
So I think real quick what you figure out when you look at these numbers are that too expensive, in air quotes, has nothing to do with the actual amount they're charging and everything to do with the reputation for quality that each service has. Netflix, of course, at 5%. Netflix has gone out of their way to make incredible, interesting content. Hulu, of course, has a reputation for being essentially TV in an easier-to-watch format. HBO, I was surprised that even 20%. HBO should have the number one block on this. They have built their entire demographic, their entire reputation is superior quality of television. It's not TV, it's HBO, is what they've been doing for 20 or 30 years.
And new movies just after coming from the theater, right?
Exactly. But here's the thing. CISO is dirt cheap, and they've got good content. What I've seen of Harmon Quest is extraordinary. CISO has the entire back catalog of Saturday Night Live all the way to the beginning. They've got top-notch, top-tier
Monty Python's
comedians.
Circus is on there.
And yet they're saying it's too expensive at how much? Like $4.99?
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. So it's not really ridiculous. It's all about what you want, right? Even at that low price, CISO is apparently too expensive for people because they just like, I don't even know what's there. Here's the way I read this. Netflix has a perception of high quality originals and a great big back catalog of TV shows and movies. That's the ultimate, right? I get it all. Hulu has a perception of the originals not being so good. Now, you can argue with me on that, and they have some really good originals, but the perception that most people have is I don't go to Hulu for originals. I go to them for a back catalog of TV shows from broadcast. So that's number 2. HBO, high quality originals, but not a huge back catalog. I don't think people think of HBO for the movies, even though they have a great selection of rotating back catalog movies, and they only have HBO shows in the TV show back catalog. And then I think that explains CBS All Access and CISO, because people say, I don't even know what's on there. It's not that compelling to me. Do they have Stranger Things or The Young Pope? No, forget it.
So here's what I think. I think CBS All Access is on the list because it is a blank canvas. You recognize the letters CBS, but you have no idea what they mean. At most, the best you can hope for with CBS All Access is that you know it's the thing that's going to have the Star Trek thing. And that's pretty much it, right?
Or if you're into The Good Wife, it's got The Good Wife spinoff. Yeah.
Right. Meanwhile, CISO is a brand new property. So in some ways, you could call 24% calling it too expensive a massive success for CISO, in that at least people know what to expect and know that they think it's too expensive, right? Because like brand recognition, full stop, I would imagine, is CISO's number one challenge that they're dealing with.
Yeah, and it's only $3.99 a month, not even $4.99 a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
How could that be too expensive, Tom?
What's that?
How could that be too expensive?
Because I don't want it at all. That's what that means. 24% of people said, you know what? Even at $4.
I guarantee. In fact, I'm going to say that if the survey was phrased without the word CISO and instead said an unnamed service that gave you the entire back catalog of Saturday Night Live, Monty Python, blah, 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 my guess is everybody would think $3.99 is too cheap. In fact, what about this, Tom? What if $3.99 is the problem? That by virtue of making it so close to free, it activates that heuristic in your mind. That it's like, well, it probably should be free if it's that cheap. But if this was $19.99,
$4 a month.
Yeah, interesting.
As far as interesting original content, people responding, 60% said they thought Netflix had interesting original content. Only 45% said they thought HBO had interesting original content. So there's the other problem. HBO's big proposition is we have original content, and 45% people said, yeah, interesting. And 55% said, not that interesting anymore. So HBO has a perception problem there. And then 36% said they thought Amazon Prime had interesting original content. And if you're wondering why wasn't Amazon Prime in the too expensive thing, it's really hard to tease that out because it's lumped in with so many other things. You get the shipping and the music and the Twitch now, and all this stuff is packaged together. So it's apples and oranges.
Exciting news just in, Tom. I'm receiving over the wire that up to 64% of Americans are wrong, because Amazon Prime definitely has interesting content, as does HBO, as does Netflix.
Well, they all do. But yeah, this is the difference between like some kind of subjective reality and what people think. People think, Netflix, man, I hear about Netflix. I know about Orange is the New Black and House of Cards and Stranger Things. Amazon Prime, I mean, I guess they win some awards, but I don't know. I mean, I wonder how much of it just has to do with length. More people have heard about Netflix because it's been around longer than Amazon Prime Video, and presentation, because I feel like the Netflix apps generally look and work a little better than Amazon Prime Video, especially on the web, where it's really hard to figure out how to go to Amazon Prime Video on the web.
Yeah, and that's definitely a fact. Keep in mind also that in terms of mass market advertising, Amazon has had some hiccups. You remember the fact that they were promoting The Man in the High Castle, and the way they did it was by putting swastikas on the subway, which didn't go over so great with some people in New York City. Who knew?
Also, they asked people about which services are easy to watch on a TV, which one are easy to use on all devices, which ones are reliable. And essentially, Netflix led all of those categories, and Hulu was number 2 in all those categories. So there you go.
Congratulations,
side note,
Hulu.
Morgan Stanley survey last April also found Netflix beat HBO in content for the first time. So this is Netflix extending their lead.
You know, this makes sense because HBO... and I've given this little spiel before, but you know, at at the midpoint of the 20th century, as television burst onto the scene, nobody knew what television wanted to be. And so the first movers were like, well, it's radio with pictures. So let's take all of our radio stars and put it on television. And the first movers, ABC, CBS, NBC, they're the ones who got the dominant position. And then in the 80s, it was hard for Fox to get a foothold in there. Same thing happened in the 1970s. But what happened in the 1970s with the deregulation of cable was that the people who were established in the broadcast market had no interest in developing cable versions of their stuff. They're like, why should we? We're number one in this market. And instead, it's the early movers, including HBO, CNN, the Turner Networks, and so on, that got the dominant position. Late to the game was CNBC, that originally was supposed to be just a cable version of NBC, but it wasn't until they retooled and became business news format, where they were first in, that they actually found a foothold. So now we're seeing HBO was a beneficiary of being an early mover in the deregulated cable market. Now they're feeling the sting that NBC felt by being late to the party with CNBC. HBO was late to the cord-cutting revolution. You remember just 3 or 4 years ago, we were talking about how they were reveling in the fact that they were the most pirated content out there. And the reason for that was they refused to make a legal way. 3 years ago, Tom, there was no legal way to watch any HBO content. And now they finally have, they're pushing HBO Now and stuff. It makes sense that they're in fourth place, that they're lagging, hanging down with Amazon, behind Amazon Prime in some places.
Yeah, I think you're being too harsh on HBO. I think they are actually, of the legacy players, they are one of the first to jump into this. Like, they saw that what Netflix was doing was working, and they made HBO go. And they got to work on HBO Now, and they were the first of the big broadcast networks to say, yeah, we'll sell you a direct subscription, even though this is really hard for us to do given our current marketing arrangements with cable companies. So I give HBO a huge amount of credit for trying to throw off those shackles. That doesn't dispute anything you're saying about when you are of the previous guard, it takes a lot longer to get over here. CBS All Access is an example of CBS trying to do that. CISO is a much worse example of NBC trying to do that. And you don't even see one from ABC or Fox yet. So I'll say, they may be late to the party, but they're the first of the big wave of late to the party people.
Hey, Tom.
Yeah, man. I know, but before you go on, I want to say, like, the cool thing about all this is we are now reaping the benefits of being cord cutters, right? Like, we get to choose between Netflix and Hulu and HBO, and we don't have to have cable anymore.
Yeah, we cord cutters.
That's right, man. I mean, that's the big thing. People who
don't have cable or satellite anymore.
What? Wait, why are you talking like that? What's the matter?
So anyway, I got cable and or satellite.
You what?
Not and or satellite. You got not even you signed up for a satellite service.
I signed up for a satellite service. Okay.
So you signed up for DirecTV?
Hey, hi, how you doing? My name is Brian.
The thing that you made me cancel a little more than a year ago? The thing that you can get online at DirecTV Now?
Let's have a little talk.
Let's.
True story. Okay, so here's how bad cable companies are padding their own numbers. Here's how bad they want to preserve the illusion that cable's fine. Was it just last week or the week before we were talking about numbers that showed that the number of cable subscribers had
it was a Comcast in that case, not AT&T, but Comcast showed a lift in their video subscribers.
Okay, so tell me if you would have done something different in this situation. I've had AT&T wireless for my cell phone since 1998. Maybe 99, but no, 98. So almost 20 years I've had the wireless. And I have been on a 25 gigabyte family plan. And what normally happened whenever the kids are watching too much Netflix or whatever, we would bump up against the 25 gigabyte limit. And then they would switch over to charging us, I want to say $15 per gigabyte after that, right? This week, something different happened. They said, hey, you hit your limit. You're cut off. You are now restricted to 2G speeds, which is 128 kilobits per minute, ISDN speeds, basically. And so I called. I'm like, hey, what's up with not letting me buy another gigabyte like usual? There's only 4 days left in our billing cycle. Surely this is an overstep or an oversight. And they said, nope, we don't do that anymore. new rules, you hit the limit, and you are throttled. Separately, how would you like unlimited data for exactly what you're paying right now? I'm like, go on. And it's like, is this fake data? Is this a zero-rated video? Is this whatever? They're like, nope. All the devices you have, unlimited use. You can use us as your ISP. Does not matter. Unlimited, true unlimited everything. The one thing we ask is that you sign up for DirecTV, to which I say, I have no intention of watching cable. I'm very committed to cutting the cord. I have no interest in any of this stuff. They're like, yes, and they say, just give us $37. We'll send you some garbage that you could put in your closet. Don't ever set it up. Go ahead and use the cable authentication to log into anything you want.
How much of this is close to what they actually said? We're going to send you something. Don't set it up.
Yes. No. That is verbatim. That is what the lady said. And the weird part is that it was well rehearsed. It was clearly not the first time she said it.
Yeah.
She said, we're going to send you some equipment. Just keep it in your closet. It doesn't matter. You never have to set it up. You never have to use it. We're just going to sign you up for this thing, and you will have unlimited data on your wireless plan. Just pretty please pretend like you have cable.
Yeah.
It was the weirdest
So wait a minute.
thing.
You didn't raise your bill.
No. My bill went the same, and I went from being over to having unlimited data. All I had to do was lie and say, I guess I have cable now, person who cares about those things.
You actually don't have cable because you haven't hooked up any of the stuff.
No.
But I guess you now have an account. Does that give you any benefits in authentication then?
Oh well, okay. All right, let's talk about this. In theory, it's perfect because I'm paying nothing more. I get unlimited data, whereas I was capped before, and I can now authenticate for all of our favorite programming. But, and this is no fault of AT&T. This has nothing to do with AT&T, nothing to do with DirecTV. This week, the new season of The Expanse came out, so I went to Sci-Fi, and it says you have to authenticate with one of your cable providers, and I was just like, yes, look, how perfect. I'm paying nothing extra, and now I get to authenticate, and I authenticated through the fault of the Sci-Fi website. It did fine through the first commercial break, got to the second commercial break, got caught in a loop, and after 5, 10, 15 minutes of just trying to play literally anything and it restarting, I ultimately ended up just buying the first season of The Expanse, just like I would have when I was a cable cutter.
So I know you're not paying anything extra for it, but you have been given a cable service or satellite service for AT&T to be able to claim you as a subscriber.
Right.
You have not installed the equipment, and you couldn't even take advantage of the authentication.
Yep. And it's no one person's fault. It's just this ridiculous, stupid system that we have. And I'll tell you what, I want to know if, real quick tidbit. So when I signed up for this thing, I originally was at 25 gigabytes, and it said, you've hit your max, and I went to the website, and the website said, hey, you could keep paying for 25 or get unlimited for the same amount. And so I was like, no, I don't want to sign up for cable. So I switched to the 30 gigabyte package, right? And then I noticed that it wasn't making my phone any faster. So I called. I'm like, hey, I switched to the appropriate level. Why is my phone not going faster? And they said, oh, no. 30 doesn't even cover your data needs. You need to move to the 40. Or you can get unlimited and keep the same price as you're paying for 30. And to which I said, okay, but I definitely just saw that offer at 25, which is $20 cheaper than I'm paying now at 30. To which they instantly said, oh, we'll just backdate it. So between you, me, and the wall, if you're on AT&T, I highly recommend you drop down to a lower tier, let it sit a couple of days, go to the AT&T website, and see if it offers you to lock in your 15 gigabyte, your 10 gigabyte, your 5 gigabyte price for unlimited data, because I'm pretty sure it will, because they rolled over super fast on that.
Wow. And not roll over minutes or roll over data.
They rolled over on their bellies and let me take my Wolverine claws and stab them right
I think
in
the
their
most disturbing
stomach.
part of this is that AT&T has stopped allowing you to pay for extra gigabytes.
Yeah, dude. They're super, super serious about this.
It's you know, this is the kind of thing that can help out in the short term, like if in various ways, but in the long term, this is not a situation that pays for them. Like, Why go through all of these hoops unless they think you're going to use that DirecTV subscription and they're going to trick you into becoming a customer? But man, it's almost a consumer abusive practice, except they didn't raise your rate. So they just basically gave you unlimited data, which is great. That's ridiculous.
Again, and this is pure speculation on my part, but I strongly suspect it's just for show. They know exactly where the market's headed. They know exactly what people want. They just need to hold on long enough that they can tell the shareholders everything's fine until they offer something that actually gives us what we want.
When you go to the AT&T website, they say, get unlimited data. They don't say sign up for DirecTV and get unlimited data, although that's what they are. That's what the advertisement is for. They're trying to compete with T-Mobile and Sprint, who are offering unlimited data in a different way, by trying to say, hey, we've got unlimited data too. You just don't do this little thing over here, that's fine. But
which, by the way, just to be clear, because I'm seeing some chat in the chat room that has some confusion. This is not DirecTV Now. This is not the cable only or the data only package. This is true DirecTV, which authenticates you on all of the offerings, all of the apps. You could do all of that stuff, which, by the way, didn't work out so well for me.
Yeah. All right. What will work out for us, though, is if you support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Cordkillers, you get an early access to our spoiler in time episodes, and you make sure that we are able to stay, as Brian says, loud, live, and independent at patreon.com/Cordkillers.
1,767 of you people are making the dream come true, and we can't thank you guys enough.
Thank you for supporting us and allowing us to tell you how to watch. Not in a bossy way.
We'll suggest.
In fact, it allows us to explain something that's been misinterpreted and is probably annoying, but in a different way than maybe you think by reading headlines. There are a bunch of headlines out there that were saying Comcast is going to charge equipment fees for subscribers who use its new Roku app. So there's a new Roku app from Comcast that you can access your Comcast programming if you live in a Comcast area and you're a Comcast subscriber on your Roku. And these headlines were like, yeah, and then Comcast is going to charge you an equipment fee even though it's your own equipment. There are two situations to consider here. One is while this app is in beta. So Comcast hasn't fully released this. They're allowing people to beta test it. Right now, it is in beta. And then there is a different situation for after it leaves beta. During the beta, you can't use the Roku app without having an Xfinity box on the same network. It's essentially using the box as a kind of authentication. This is to prevent people from distributing the app and using it outside of the Comcast area. So during the beta, no extra fee is assessed at all because you have to have that Xfinity box. So there's no fee at all if you're trying out the beta. After the beta, they're going to have enough smarts in the software that it'll be able to tell if you're supposed to be using the app or not, and you will be able to use the app on its own, at which point Comcast is treating it the same way they would treat someone who owns a TiVo with cable card. That means if the app is your only outlet for television, you get a $2.50 credit on your bill. If you continue using an Xfinity box, however, and the Roku is an additional outlet, they charge you $9.95 minus the $2.50 credit. That is exactly the same situation that happens if you have an Xfinity box and a second box that's a TiVo with cable card. So what they're doing is saying, hey, if you're using the Roku app, we're going to treat it like you brought your own cable card to a box. It's just a lot easier because all you have to do is install the app and authenticate.
So what's your gut reaction on this? Fair game or hinky stuff?
It's not as hinky as people want to make it sound. They're like, they're charging you for using an app on your Roku. And it's like, well, sort of. They are charging you. If all you do is use an app on the Roku, it's actually a decent deal. If it's your second box, it's pretty hinky to charge me anything for this ever. But I get what they're doing, which is very simply saying, hey, we already have a billing category set up for people who bring their own equipment, and Roku is bringing your own equipment. So we're going to charge you that way.
Well, so, okay, if we're going to look at a parallel to the old days of cable programming, this is the equivalent to splitting off to another television and getting a second cable box, right? Like functionally speaking.
Yeah, right. You're able to watch all of your same programming on another television.
Which it seems like that's their right to charge for, since they certainly have. And it seems like, like Microsoft does either per seat licensing or per computer licensing, right?
Except that's not how they describe the charge, right? And so it all gets into the semantics and expectations, but it sort of feels like, well, you're charging me an equipment fee. I paid for the equipment. I downloaded an app. You didn't have to give me anything. You didn't even give me any cable cards that I put in here.
Well, but what they
all
are
I'm doing
giving...
is downloading your app. And so it's the difference between like, okay, I guess you're charging me for an extra room, but if I download Netflix, I can watch Netflix on as many devices as I want. They don't charge me for an extra room. They charge me for simultaneous streams, but not for putting the app on extra things.
Yeah, this is one of those things where the smart play for the cable companies is to push as hard as they can to remind people of how things have always been with cable, because it always has been that you pay to add cable access to another television unit.
Well, no, actually, back in the days when you didn't need a digital cable box, you could just splice that thing throughout your house. They didn't charge you anything. It was one signal, right?
Sure. Fair enough.
Only with the introduction of the box that they started charging you. And the way they justified it was, hey, I know we didn't used to charge you for extra screens, but we have to charge you for the box. And now they're like, okay, but it's kind of like a box, even though you provided it. So we're going to charge you.
I mean, I'm not saying it's a great value. I'm the last person to say that cable's a good value, unless it gets you free unlimited data on your mobile. But I am going to say that it's not unprecedented what they're going for. And if what they're trying to do is harken back to the established format of you buy another box so you can have another TV to watch the other thing, then that makes sense. It's not great, but
it strikes me as lazy, right? It doesn't strike me as gouging. And a lot of these headlines were trying to say like, they're ripping you off. And I'm like, no, what they're doing is just what they've always done. And I really believe they're looking at it like, so how do we bill for this app? I guess it's closest to having a cable card where you provide the equipment and we're providing the programming. So charge for it like that. And if they were a little less lazy, if they were a little more forward looking, they'd say, hey, you know what? We'll get a lot more uptake if we make a big deal of how, hey, this brings our awesome programming to more places and you don't have to pay anything extra unlike the other guys.
This goes back to the illusion where it's like, again, I'm convinced all the cable companies know just how dead their format is. They know that it's a dead format walking, but they need to keep up appearances long enough to prepare for what comes next. And this seems like another attribute of that.
Because, man, you are competing with this app. You are mostly competing with Sling TV and PlayStation Vue and DirecTV Now.
Yep.
And those don't charge you extra for boxes. So something to keep in mind. All right, let's talk about what to watch in Under Surveillance.
Not like real estate. It's all about location. Under Surveillance.
Now, some of you, in fact, probably most of you in the United States may have watched the Super Bowl on Sunday, but fewer of you did than last year. The broadcast drew a 48.8 rating, down from 49 last year, and the record 2 years ago of 49.7. So the question, Brian, is, did fewer people actually watch? Were there more people watching a streamed version of it, which, by the way, went out in the fourth quarter, apparently, on Fox Sports Go's app, which is horrible. Or is it a combination of just fewer people watching?
Well, here's what we know. We know by all reports it was an amazing Super Bowl, right? Like, I didn't watch it, but I'm told it was fantastic.
Yeah, it was the first Super Bowl ever where someone came back from a deficit that long and it went into overtime and sudden death, and it was very exciting.
Right, and it's certainly not an indictment on Lady Gaga's draw as halftime entertainment. I think she's...
No, apparently, she's got glowing reviews for her halftime performance.
And it's not because the United States of America has gotten smaller since last year.
No, I believe we've gotten larger since the last two Super Bowls, yeah.
Well, there's only one thing left for me to assume this has to do with, and that's people like me who couldn't be bothered with the tiny hurdle that it would take in order to turn this thing on because he doesn't have an over-the-air antenna set up or a DVR or an easy stream. And so it's like, I'm sure I'll hear about it if it's great.
Yeah, and the other thing to consider, because I think that's perfectly valid, is that this number only counts people watching traditionally either over the air or on cable. If you watched through a Fox Sports Go app or on your website, or even PlayStation View, this isn't counting it.
So
this is the old overnight ratings. So these ratings will be expanded and it might go up, but.
No, now that you mention that, I think that's a slam dunk. Keep in mind, if you watched on a stream, you are not counted in this. That's got to be what it is, right? I mean,
I think it's a little of both. Yeah, I think it's a lot of people who are just watching in a different way than usual, but also I think, Brian, there are more of you out there who are like, do I really care anymore? And especially when it was the New England Patriots, who've been in the Super Bowl a lot of people who are even football fans were like, I don't know if I care to watch them again. So it's interesting.
Sure.
Netflix showed a trailer for Stranger Things during the Super Bowl on Sunday. And in that trailer announced that season 2 of Stranger Things will arrive on Halloween.
You know what? This is the third time I've watched the trailer, and I just realized that it was intentional that they did the retro ad for Eggos. I forgot that Eggos played an important role in the first season of Stranger Things, but it's a fantastic trailer, and the fact that they're promoting it for Halloween 2017, could not be more excited.
Yep. Eileen and I were watching over the air Super Bowl coverage, and when the Eggo thing came on, we're like, okay, what nostalgia play is which car company?
You're waiting for it to be Doritos flavored Eggos.
Yeah,
They're amazing.
Who's doing the throwback? And when it became Stranger Things, we were both surprised and delighted.
That's great.
Finally, Frank Herbert's son, Brian Herbert, tweeted that Legendary Pictures has signed Denis Villeneuve, director of Arrival, to direct a new Dune series film project.
Am I a bad person if I confess that I deeply, deeply love the 1980s movie of Dune, and that is for me?
Listen,
and I read the book afterwards.
Love, I could forgive. Deeply, I could overlook, but deeply, deeply?
No, it's great. Dude, you're not going to beat Patrick Stewart as Gurney Halleck. It was amazing. And the set design was incredible. There's a lot to love in that. Sure. You know what? Let's give Dune a try again. I didn't much care for Dune the play that I saw on the Sci-Fi Channel, but who knows? Maybe they'll be able to rock it.
And Brian does understand, audience, that his opinions are not the common opinions.
Are wrong. No. You can say it. I'm wrong. I'm always wrong.
Everyone likes Jodorowsky's Dune best of all.
Yeah. Actually, that you did watch that, right?
I did. It was so good.
It was good. Yeah.
Well, not Jodorowsky's Dune, but the documentary.
The documentary.
Jodorowsky's Dune.
Of course.
Not in case someone's like, wait, there's a cut? Like, no, there was never a cut. What have we been watching, Brian?
Dude, I've been watching a little bit of, let me look, I wrote it down. I watched Justified per our, by the way, this has been an extraordinary week, and I don't think I'm allowed to say exactly what, but I will say that out of nowhere, I suddenly found myself in Miami, Florida with Justin Robert Young, and we had a lot of adventures, and there were definitely cameras around. We definitely found ourselves on airboats in the Everglades. We found ourselves
burying bodies.
Yeah, swimming with manatees. We found ourselves in the midst of conducting symphonies, and we learned how to play Hi-Li. Unrelatedly, if you guys are interested, you should check out Discovery VR's app, in which Let's Go Places Austin shows adventures of
so
me and Justin.
So you watched a lot of what was happening in front of you this week because of what you were doing.
Oh, did I ever?
Yeah.
It was crazy. But I made it home early yesterday, and I watched all my TV in one day. I watched Justified, watched 1.5 episodes of The Young Pope, and I watched both episodes of The Expanse. What about you?
Yeah, I watched all of those things too, except for one of the episodes of Young Pope I'm still behind you on the Young Pope, but I'm catching up. One of the benefits of having a wife that works for Fandango and Rotten Tomatoes is we're watching more movies at home. So this weekend we watched Sully with Tom Hanks, which I can say I was prepared to just have on in the background and be like, well, let's watch the interesting dramatization. Totally sucked me in.
Yep.
By a third of the way through the movie, I put my phone down and I was just watching. It's really that good. And we also watched Kubo and the Two Strings, which was just delightful. Fantastic
my gosh.
animated. feature.
I only caught like the first act of that when my kids were watching it, but visually it was utterly arresting. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, for sure. Also, I've started catching up on The Magicians, which premiered 2 weeks ago. So season 2 is back. So I've been watching that. And my wife has been watching Blackish on Hulu. And it's one of those things where, sometimes when your partner watches something, you just hear it in the background. Funny. That is a funny series. So I'm going. I can't tell if I'm converting into wanting to watch it regularly or just not minding that it's on because it's good. But I have to say, really funny show.
Right on. What's the name of the guy? Norman Lear. I heard on Harmontown recently was being asked what he likes on television. Norman Lear, of course, creator of One Day at a Time and all, basically Good Times, anything you loved from
All
the
in the
70s
Family.
radio.
Yeah.
But he said that he really dug Blackish, but he also expressed that he's really into social change as expressed through the situation comedy format as well.
Yeah, and what I think a lot of people may have the perception of the show is that it's going to be very heavy-handed in that, and it's not. It's about an upper middle class family,
right?
And it's kind of poking fun at themselves in sort of trying to keep their identity when they're in a situation where they're not fully accepted into one world, but also really not living in another world. So, and there's a lot of hilarity. They had a really good recent episode about the incoming administration, and it's not all the things you would expect. And I think that's what I like is like I expect like, okay, this would be the joke here, and they'll go a different direction. So that's funny.
Awesome.
Mr. Bryce Castillo, what should we be on the lookout for?
Hey, I have 2 quick updates on shows that we've talked about before. First off, Netflix's very polite reality show Terrace House is back with a new batch of episodes, and they're set in Hawaii. It's a bunch of new kids, and it's pretty cool. That's called Terrace House Aloha State.
This is the Japanese reality show?
Yeah,
Got
where 3 boys and 3 girls live in a house, and then they try to date and do their own thing. There are only 8 episodes, but the vibe that we're getting from Netflix is that they will have more like batches of episodes because they're week by week in Japan. So check that out. It's also listed as a different series. So like the BoJack Horseman holiday special,
right?
You have to search for a different thing. It's Terrace House Aloha State. Also, Hulu's The Path, the drama The Path with Aaron Paul, about a cult and
basically falling at like he becomes a non-believer in the cult,
right.
And he's surrounded by the social pressures of still living in the cult,
right?
But not
because
believing.
his wife is high in the cult and his
right.
children are into it. That is back on Hulu. Those are airing. I think those are airing on Wednesdays, but there are already 3 or 4 new episodes on that. But I did want to tell you guys about something that just popped up on Netflix really recently and kind of with not too much fanfare. It's called the Santa Clarita Diet. I think you guys have seen a little bit about this, right?
Yeah, I think we've talked about it. This is the Drew Barrymore thing, right, where she comes back from the dead.
Yeah,
and Timothy Oliphant from Justified.
That's right. So she plays Drew Barrymore plays Sheila, who is like a kind of real estate agent who, for some nebulous reason, dies and comes back to life as she's not really like a zombie. She's not like undead and not thinking, but she is a little more impulsive and trades more on her id than her ego. And it's interesting. It reminds me a little bit of Weeds. You guys saw Weeds, right?
Sure.
Wait,
is that Nathan Fillion I'm seeing?
Nathan Fillion is a guest star.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Weeds in that you've kind of got like a suburban mom dealing with suburban California
It's
life.
got a MacGuffin to put a magnifying lens under those daily pressures that suburbanites have to deal with.
Exactly. So it's like, hey, we have to find somebody and kill them, and I have to eat them. And also, hey, your daughter is messing up in school.
Yeah.
The only thing that kind of got me near the end of it is we've seen zombie movies, right, where someone gets bitten and they're like, oh no, I'm gonna make it through and we're gonna be good. Like, there's always that little stray thought watching this in that, like, we know how this ends, right? Don't we? I won't spoil the season because that would be not a cool thing to do. But that was one thing that kind of got to me. But I think it's interesting. There are only 10 half-hour episodes on Netflix, and I think it's worth giving a try. It's certainly not family friendly in the least. There's a lot of
Even though it's about a family being friendly.
That's right. I started watching this at the same time with someone on Twitter, and I was like 5 minutes in, and he goes, "You should not watch this while you're eating because it has a lot of really gross."
It's the reverse of Hannibal in that Hannibal made you want to try human flesh just a little bit.
Right. And
this not so much.
Does not. So check that out. That's the Santa Clarita Diet on Netflix.
Awesome.
Cool. It will not make you hungry. But if you got something we should be hungry to be on the lookout for, email us, cordkillers@gmail.com. Meanwhile, I should tell you that if you haven't heard, I've got a fiction novel coming out. Publishers Weekly called it appropriate.
Wait, what?
They said a lot more. They said a lot more words than that. Though.
Wait, hold on. What
They
did
said
they say?
appropriately convoluted, actually, because
I would love it if their review was just appropriate.
that's all they said. Said a few other things. Actually, they said really nice things. But yeah, it's coming out on March 14th. It's called Pilot X. It's about a time traveler who comes from a race of time travelers and just wants to fly his time ship, but he gets caught up into a galactic war and has to decide between saving his own race or destroying the universe. If you want to find out what he decides, then you're going to have to get the book, which is also available for pre-order on audible.com as well.
Awesome.
Let's get to the front lines.
Front lines!
The United States Federal Communication Commission will vote on February 23rd on initial approval for voluntary adoption of a broadcast standard that has been long in the coming, ATSC 3.0. ATSC 3.0 would allow for 4K TV broadcast over the air, geolocation of broadcast signals, and some interactivity. The standard could wake up a receiver for emergency alerts. It can target alerts on a street-by-street basis. So if there's a flooding in one area, it just wakes up all the TVs in that area and says, hey, guys, flash flood warning. It also allows better audience measurement, can support more encryption, which also means access restriction, aka DRM. ATSC3 is not supported by most of your existing equipment, so the FCC would require ATSC 1.0, the current signals, to continue to be broadcast while ATSC3 is rolled out. Right now, South Korea has adopted ATSC3. They adopted it in 2016. This is still very early days for this.
So am I understanding this correctly? Like when it comes to spectrum allotment, there's a certain amount of bandwidth that is dedicated for, this television station, this radio station, et cetera, et cetera. We're not looking at any increased bandwidth. I assume that the reason you're able to do such a higher fidelity picture has to do with compression formats
Yeah, this is basically saying right now the only standard that the FCC allows you to broadcast in is ATSC 1 because that's the standard that all the TVs can get. And so when we give you the license, we say this is a license to broadcast in that standard. Now what they're saying is on a voluntary basis, if a television station wants to start experiment with a broadcast in ATSC3, they can do it.
Got it. Meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal reports that Facebook is developing a video app for set-top streaming boxes like Roku and Apple TV. Facebook is supposedly asking media companies to develop TV-quality shows that Facebook can license for the app. The shows could be up to 10 minutes long with both sports and scripted shows. According to sources, Facebook considered developing video streaming apps over several years, but in summer of 2016 decided to make video a top priority. Mark Zuckerberg told analysts in the company's earnings call that Facebook is, quote, focusing more on shorter form content to start. My question to you, Tom, is has anyone sent Facebook the memo that they're not going to be the new YouTube?
Oh, no, they will send that memo right back to you and say,
return to sender.
That's what you think.
I mean, it is unreal the amount of unfair leveraging. I'm going to use unfair. That's a loaded term. I apologize. But it seems like in a world where Facebook counts 3 seconds of no audio scanning, like as you scroll down your feed, if a video plays for 3 seconds and without audio, they're like, yep, that's a view. That's one view. We're super popular. We're Facebook. Like, is it possible for them to force everybody to like it?
No. That's the problem. And they've actually fixed a lot of their video counting so that it's not so exaggerated now. They have had some amount of success with Facebook Live. There have been some very interesting streams and people are watching them. I would have thought when I first started reading this Wall Street Journal article that Facebook putting a video app was a great idea. This is a way to bring your best live streams that are out there. They've done a lot of work with publishers to get those live streams going, make it easy to watch them on TV, steal a bunch of Twitter's thunder, get some deals with sports, do some red carpet streams, some award show streams, and maybe even pay for some high quality non-Netflix competitive content, some reality shows, some talk shows, things like that. It's not what Facebook seems to be doing. According to Zuckerberg, they're focusing on short form content, which means they're absolutely going right up against YouTube and thinking, hey, we've got a worldwide audience of billions. If we can get people to create high quality short form content on Facebook, people will watch it here. Let's make a set-top box app so it's easy to watch it wherever they want.
It's so weird. It's like a weird love triangle. You got YouTube that wants so bad to be cable television that they spend hundreds of millions of dollars on ultimately channels that didn't go anywhere, or most of them did not end up paying off.
Well, forget the channels. They're spending hundreds of millions on original content on YouTube Red,
right?
Which jury's out. Like, it's easy to say it's a failure because none of you are watching it, right?
Sure.
But there are people watching it. It's very questionable if enough, though.
Right. My point is they're trying very, very hard to be cable television, but at the end of the day, they're going to be YouTube, and they seem to kind of resent the fact that they're YouTube. Meanwhile, you have Facebook that desperately wants to be YouTube and is paying hundreds of millions of dollars to try to be YouTube. But guess what? You're not going to be YouTube. You're going to be Facebook.
Yeah. And honestly, I think YouTube's got the right idea. They may be going about it in the wrong way, but being able to compete with Netflix and Amazon is the growth area, because YouTube's doing great on the short form creator side of it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas Facebook, it's like, I get what they're thinking, which is, oh, well, we'll start with the short form and then move into the long form. But honestly, man, if Facebook just went straight up and said, let's fill a gap in the long form stuff, I think that would be more successful.
That is a very, very difficult thing to sell to shareholders, however.
Yep.
Pioneering a new category is the last thing any shareholder wants to hear. They want to hear, thing I understand, how you're going to be better than thing I understand. And that's
although in Facebook's case, Zuckerberg is really the only shareholder they have to please. He has maintained iron-fisted control of his public company. So It must be what Zuckerberg wants too. Home media streaming app maker Plex has acquired WatchUp. The streaming news service aggregates content from more than 170 news sources, including local channels, letting you customize newscasts by selecting topics and then liking or disliking reports so the app can learn what kind of news you prefer. Plex intends to use the personalization technology for other content in the future, so it might apply these algorithms to your other recordings so it can surface the things it thinks you'll want to watch. Plex also added Amazon Voice Services support, so now you can control Plex from your Amazon Echo.
So I don't doubt that this is a good idea. I don't doubt that it'll be popular. I don't doubt that a lot of people will want this. But if we can put a pin in all of that and instead visit the overly cliched question of, is that a good thing? Is that what we need, is the ability to shape our own news feed so that we can live deeper in a bubble?
I mean, that's the obvious reaction. It depends on how they do it, right? If it's saying, we know you like world events, sports, and technology, that's not necessarily living in a bubble. If it's saying, we know you only like to hear things that are positive about your preferred political party, then yeah, that's living in a bubble.
And that's one of the things people oftentimes chortle. Chortle, I use the word chortle. Some people chortle when I mention that I use Google News. But one of the things I really like about Google News is that it's algorithm driven, and it's driven by the general popularity of a particular topic, whether or not it's on my side of the political spectrum or not. I just wonder how this will handle that kind of thing.
Yeah. And then beyond the news side of it, having it work, having the algorithm know, like, hey, we can see that you are watching The Young Pope and there's a new episode popped up, and so we're going to put that front and center when you launch Plex. That kind of stuff's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it's really weird. I don't know where the lines change between having a computer program your beliefs and what you're interested in versus having a very believable simulacrum of a friend who just really gets you and knows the kind of things that you're going to be interested in.
Yeah, or a Jeeves who is like, your latest episode of The Young Pope, sir.
Yes, exactly. Well, I know I've been watching, and you certainly seem to enjoy it quite a bit. Meanwhile, as part of a Netflix hack day, I like Hatflix neck day. As part of a Netflix hack day, 4 designers created Mindflix using a brainwave reading Muse headband to control the Netflix interface. Great if you lose the remote. Other hacks from the day included a picture-in-picture mode to see what other profiles on your account are watching, a donation feature for films tied to a charity, and Stranger Things as an Atari-like video game. Hey, here's a question. I'm just throwing this out there for the next hack day. Would you tune in to a live stream that, as if it was changing channels on old analog television, just flipped to whatever at that exact moment was the most popular content on Netflix?
Ooh,
so
I like that.
maybe you're watching about a minute of Stranger Things, and then suddenly Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt is on, and then suddenly another thing is on. You're just watching what the world is watching.
Oh, I that would be absolutely fascinating. I love that idea. When I saw the picture-in-picture hack, I was like, I like that, but generally, Eileen and I are not watching Netflix in 2 different places at the same time. What would be cooler is if you could get your friends to approve you to peek in on what they're watching, so that I could have a picture-in-picture that's like, hey, here's what Brian's watching right now on Netflix. I think that'd be kind of cool too.
So basically set up a social network where social watching is a thing. In a world where we have social eating and social gaming and stuff, social watching could be a deal.
Finally, a new Chrome extension called Netflix Categories is the latest effort to let you get easier access to that full Netflix library. Basically, it's a little search bar with more than 100 of those crazy subcategories, like romantic comedies with samurai. And they seriously have stuff like that in Netflix. So there's 100 of those pre-listed, which you can then search through and bookmark. Netflix reportedly has 76,897 of these things. They call them micro genres. And the creator of the extension, Dikshith Alamani, promises to keep adding more to the extension. I don't know that he'll get them all in there, but it's an easier way to dig through the Netflix back catalog and find out stuff that you might not otherwise come across.
Yeah, if you like tricky stuff like this, we actually did an episode of The Modern Rogue called 8 Best Netflix Tricks and Secrets. Just search Modern Rogue Netflix and you'll see a bunch of cool other stuff in there.
Now the dispatches from the front have arrived.
Oh, my goodness. This mailbag is so full of
Mail
dispatches.
call. Gabriel Jordan writes, "It doesn't surprise me that people aren't watching the Cat recap. In a world where it is now inevitable that the show will pop up on a service where I can binge it later, why would I risk spoiling myself with a silly YouTube video? The Expanse is exactly that show for me. I've heard so many good things about it from you guys over the past 2 years, but until it popped onto Amazon Prime recently, I was literally unable to view it outside of piracy because Sci-Fi didn't put it anywhere without a cable subscription. So I'm just now 4 episodes into the first season, and I'll hold at season 1 until season 2 shows up for Prime. No way I'm going to risk watching a silly catch up video right now. Now, Gabriel, I'm not picking on you when I say this, but people say, there was no way for me to watch it till it showed up on Netflix or unless I had a cable subscription. You could always buy it from Amazon even.
I did. That's exactly how I watched the first season. And even though I have cable now, that's how I'm watching the second season.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, quick note. I know that that Andrew was adamant that this was meant to be an advertising and outreach type of thing. I still don't really see that. I really think it's a community bolstering mechanism to remind you of what you loved about The Expanse from the first season going into the second.
A community.
Mew. All right. Hey, killers, writes Amar. I was surprised when you guys said that you need authentication to watch Adult Swim because you can stream Adult Swim for free on their site. Not only that, but they offer multiple streams. You got the Adult Swim live stream, Williams Stream Toonami, Animation Marathon, Live Action Marathon, the Venture Brothers Marathon, Tim and Eric Marathon, Off the Air Marathon,
many marathons.
Ghost Planet Marathon. Check out all the streams at adultswim.com/videos/streams. I stand corrected, sir.
Yeah, no, me too. I assumed that the amount of free on the Adult Swim site. I knew it existed, but I always assumed it was a small amount and that you had to authenticate to get most of it. But if this much is available, that would explain why all of those millennial cord cutters are using Adult Swim. They don't even need to borrow.
Yeah, and to be honest, that really seems so Adult Swim. Like they've been so forward-looking.
These may not be the program feeds. These may not be the TV feeds.
Oh, no. Well, especially not the marathon stuff.
Right.
Like that's stuff that they're okay to have just flowing out 24 hours.
Yeah.
Matthew Cooper said, "Hey there, blind listener from Southern England. Been listening since you were frame rate. Hey, welcome, Matthew. Hope I can answer the question your listener was asking from Massachusetts who is moving to England. This is fantastic. The main services that people use over here in England are Netflix, Amazon, obviously, BBC iPlayer, ITV Hub, My5, UK TV Play, and TV Player, which offers about 100 free channels and 30 paid channels with some on-demand content, and Now TV. A majority of these services are free to use, but will have advertisements, or he might say advertisements. You can watch a majority of U.S. shows with at least one of those services. For example, Sky has the rights to most of the HBO content, which means that Now TV will have that, which you can get online. Channel 5 often gets the rights to most CBS dramas. Channel 4 has the rights to the majority of the CW dramas. Netflix often carries shows from the U.S. exclusively as they are aired out in the States, and things like Pretty Little Liars and Once Upon a Time are classic examples of this. Same goes for things like Mr. Robot and Preacher on Amazon Prime. The other thing is it's very easy to be a cord cutter over here. I have not had satellite TV or cable for about 2 years now. We get about 100 channels over the air for free, and all you really need is a Freeview box, which can cost you anything between 20 pounds to 100 pounds, depending on the functionality you want, and then a decent antenna. You're only really out of luck if you want Spanish television. There isn't really a big Spanish community here, so it's very hard to get that content. You're in luck, though, if you're South Asian and love Indian content. There are 2 Indian channels on Freeview, and if you get satellite, there are about 50 to 100 channels, depending on the package you have. Hope that helps. Love the show. I have plenty of friends in the U.S., so I'm interested in what you guys do as far as TV is concerned. Keep up the good work.
Fantastic, man. Meanwhile, Paul from Dayton doesn't have a fast enough connection to stream, so he uses over-the-air for a lot of his viewing, and he writes, "My current setup uses Next PVR to record the shows, a free option with a very small payment for the channel guide data, and a combination of Plex and Kodi to play back the files. The main advantage of Plex is that file playback is similar to any of the streaming devices or services that I can begin watching on one device, stop, and then continue on another at the exact point I left. In addition, while Plex is much easier to set up and use for streaming, Kodi seems to work better for files that have some corruption in the recording, hanging up far less often than Plex does. A recent development essentially combined the two, with Plex producing an add-on for the Kodi program. The end result allows for navigation on the Plex database using the remote and incorporating some of Kodi's processing power to deal with corruptions in the playback. Thanks anyway, he says nice things. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, for explaining the setup. That's an interesting combination. And what interested me the most is that Kodi being added to Plex kind of helps solve one of his problems of not having to choose between the two all the time.
Yep.
Well, that is it for this episode of Cord Killers. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. We're live on diamondclub.tv Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. And we actually can see back out and tell if you're watching. So join us.
Hey guys, Tom and Brian here. We just wanted to say thank you to all of our $5 patrons who keep us loud, live, and independent. You guys make Cord Killers the production that it is.
Your name appears in the video credits and appears in our hearts. And if you'd like to become one of them or see who they are, you can go to patreon.com/cordkillers.
You'll need to do more than just go there, though. You'll have to sign up and, pledge an amount. But
unless you just want to see who they are.
Well, I mean, you could gawk. That's a little creepy, isn't it?
If you want to be a gawker,
let's go.
It's up to you.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.